Good morning. My name is Michelle Stocker, and I'm a member of the Orange Bowl Committee. It is my pleasure to welcome you this morning, and on behalf of the committee, I want to thank you for attending the Orange Bowl Collegiate Athletics webinar presented by Bank of America. The Orange Bowl's mission and vision is to promote and serve South Florida in order to inspire youth, engage the community, and enhance the economy. This webinar more than meets these goals by providing a gateway of information, not only for student athletes, but for their parents, their coaches, their counselors as well, to help them put them on a path to success. Today, you're going to hear from some highly knowledgeable and amazing collegiate industry leaders who will share very important information about NCAA and NAIA, initial eligibility, changes due to COVID, core courses, financial aid, and so much more. I hope you have your pen and paper ready because there's going to be a wealth of information for you. Before we get started, however, I would like to thank our sponsors, for without them, this event wouldn't be possible. First of all, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Bank of America, and our associate sponsors, AEA Education Foundation and Kemet. Now, I would like to introduce the moderator for today, Ms. Yeshiva Edwards. Yeshiva is a former D1 student athlete and has worked in athletics administration for over 15 years, with the last 8 years dedicated to athletics compliance. Having served roles both on the D1 and D2 levels, Yeshiva currently serves as the Assistant AD for Compliance and AD/ID at Nova Southeastern University. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Ms. Yeshiva Edwards.
Good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you once again for joining us for the Orange Bowl Collegiate Athletics webinar. I am Yeshiva Edwards, the Assistant Athletics Director for Compliance and NCAA Athletics Diversity and Inclusion Designee at Nova Southeastern University. As already mentioned, today you will hear from several highly knowledgeable and recognized industry leaders from the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, or NAIA, the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and Bank of America Merrill Lynch. The presenters today will cover quite a few critical topics surrounding NCAA and NAIA eligibility as it relates to GPAs, transcripts, standardized testing, and core courses. They will also speak to you about parental involvement, financial aid, and financial preparedness. I encourage you to grab a pen and paper and jot down some notes, as we will provide you with quite a bit of important information. And I can tell you, as a parent of a graduating senior, how appreciative I am when I can get information that is informative and helpful. So I would ask that you make sure that you take notes. And if you have any questions, at the end of each presentation, we will have a 5-minute question and answer session. If you do have questions, please put those in the chat, and then we will answer your questions, as many as we can during that session time. So now I would like to introduce to you our phenomenal presenters for today. The introductions will be in order of their presentations. Our first presenter of today will be Barrington Huntley, Assistant Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnerships with the NCAA Eligibility Center. Barrington grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and graduated from Chamblee High School in 2006. He attended New Mexico State University as a football student athlete and graduated in 2011. From there, he obtained a law degree from the University of Mexico in 2016, where he then went on and interned with the National Collegiate Athletic Association's national office before getting hired full-time in 2017. Our next presenter will be Danielle Wong, Manager of Eligibility Services for the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. Danielle has been with the NAIA since 2012 and has served as the team lead of the International Eligibility Department since 2015. She graduated from Kansas State University with a bachelor's degree in Human Services and Family Studies with a minor in nonprofit leadership. Her passion is assisting student athletes from around the world in fulfilling their goal in both higher education and collegiate athletics. Sharon Krantz is the Executive Director at Miami-Dade County Public Schools. She has worked as a school counselor and student services in the, I'm sorry, let me go back. Sharon is the Executive Director for Division and Student Service for the Miami-Dade County Public Schools. She has worked as a school counselor and student service department chair in both middle and senior high school for over 25 years before becoming a district administrator in 2015. In her role as executive director, she directly oversees the Collegiate or College Assistance Program, Miami-Dade County Public Schools post-secondary planning and college access program in all of the district's high schools. She also serves as the NCAA district contact and provides training and support to high school counselors and athletic directors regarding the academic eligibility of student athletes. In closing out our presentations for today will be Jorge Rios, Assistant Vice President and International Wealth Advisor for Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Jorge is an international financial advisor for Merrill Lynch, a Bank of America company. He has held this position for over 10 years. His principal responsibilities include advising and assisting clients with strategies to meet their financial and wealth management goals. Jorge was born and raised in Colombia and has made South Florida his home for the past 27 years. He is educated in the United States and holds a bachelor's degree in history and an MBA in international business. I'm so excited about the wonderful information that you will receive today. So let us jump right in and get started with our first presenter for today, Barrington Huntley, Assistant Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnership with the NCAA Eligibility Center. Thank you.
Thanks, Yeshiva. I'll go ahead and get started. So I appreciate the introduction. As Yeshiva mentioned, my name is Barrington Huntley. I'm an Assistant Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnerships with the NCAA's Eligibility Center. And what the NCAA Eligibility Center does, we're that department within the NCAA that really focuses on certifying Division I and Division II, or certifying high school students to play Division I and Division II college athletics. I think as a former student athlete, I'm an example of the positive impact that playing college sports can have on your life. And I think you and your families being here today, building that foundation, taking that first step toward building that foundation of education will really propel you in the next stage of your life. We all know our playing careers will end at some point, whether we become a Hall of Famer or we ride the bench in college. So building that foundation here today is super important, and I'm glad to be with you. So kind of what we'll talk about. I have about 15, 20 minutes, and I want to get some things across to you. When it comes to this initial eligibility process, there's a lot of information to know, but I want you to have some concrete takeaways from this presentation. I want you to know where to register, what type of registration account you're going to need. That's the first thing that I want you to know. The second thing I want to make sure you know is the NCAA initial eligibility standards for Divisions I and Divisions II. I'll talk a little bit about how we treat Division III. I also want to leave you and your families with some resources. This presentation, I'll make sure that I send a PDF version to the event organizers, and they can distribute that out to you after the presentation is over. And once you get that PDF version, there will be links included in the presentation that you can click on that will take us to resources that will help you and your family navigate this process. And then also we'll have time at the end for some questions that you can ask so that I can help out with anything that comes up today. So let's go ahead and get started. Registration is the first step. There's going to be two types of accounts that you will need, that you can register for with the NCAA Eligibility Center. Where you register is that first step. You go to eligibilitycenter.org. You'll come to this landing page. Right there in the middle, you will see register. Click on that. It will take you to the process to begin to register for the NCAA Initial Eligibility Center. There are two types of accounts that I mentioned. The first is going to be a profile page account. This is a free account, and it's for students who maybe are early on in the process. So if you're 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and you're thinking college athletics could be something for me, but I still want some more information. I'm still growing, I'm still developing. I would recommend the profile page account. That gets your information into the NCAA and gets the process started. It's completely free. But however, if you do end up playing or knowing that you want to play Division I or Division II college athletics, you're going to need the certification account. So you get that free profile page account, you'll be able to transition it into that paid certification account so that we can perform a certification, academic and amateurism certification on your file in the system. You do see there that there is the $90 fee for domestic student athletes, $150 for international student athletes, but there are fee waivers available. If you or your family are a student who qualifies for free or reduced lunch, or has received a fee waiver for the SAT or the ACT, then you would qualify for a waiver of the NCAA certification account fee. So that's something to keep in mind. How you get that fee, you make sure that you talk to your counselor and let them know. They will have the capability to do that in what we call the high school portal, how we communicate with high school counselors. They would have that ability to go in there and make sure that they get that aligned onto your account. You do have to have the certification account. This is, like I said, this is critical if you're going to actually play college sports. Before you take an official visit, so before a college can pay for you to come onto their campus, you do have to have the certification account. Before you sign your NLI, which is your scholarship agreement, you have to have your certification account. So again, profile page first, that kind of gets you the information that you're going to be needing to make a more informed decision. And then moving into the certification account, once you know, hey, I've got these schools looking at me, and I know it's more likely than not that I'm going to end up playing college sports, you want to switch over to that certification account. Also, that is the first step for NCAA. You have to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center, but it's a two-step process. So in the NCAA, we kind of create the rules, the overarching rules for how the colleges within the NCAA have to operate. But those colleges have their own admission standards. We're kind of the bare minimum, and then the colleges, have their own admissions processes and their standards. So while you could meet the NCAA initial eligibility requirements, you might want to go to a college, that might have a little bit higher admission requirements. So making sure you understand that process as well in the colleges that are recruiting you is going to be important. Before I started working at the NCAA, I worked in compliance at Georgia Tech, and I can tell you right now, Georgia Tech had a little bit of a higher academic standard than what the initial eligibility standards are. So again, working with the compliance department and the coaches and the colleges that are recruiting you is going to be very important for you to keep in mind as you're going through this process. Now let's talk about the NCAA initial eligibility standards. I'll go over the gold standard for Division I, Division II, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we treat Division III student athletes. So the gold standard in Division I is going to be right here what you see. So in Division I, if you want to be able to receive your full scholarship, you want to be able to practice, you want to be able to compete in your first year of college enrollment, you have to make sure you're knocking out these things. The first thing is going to be the core courses. You have to have 16 core courses completed in your high school career. When I say core courses, I'm talking about those big ones: English, math, science, social studies, foreign languages. Those types of courses are the ones that the NCAA cares about and really bases their GPA requirements off as well. You know, while taking music, taking PE, those classes are definitely part of the total education of a student athlete. What we're focused on is those core courses, as they really prepare you for college academics and the rigors that come with that. So 16 core courses, 10 of those 16 have to be completed before you start your senior year of high school. This is a big one, because what this means is from the time you're in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, you have to make sure that you are taking those right classes, that you're taking enough core courses in those early years, so that when you get to 12th grade, you have those 10 locked in. It becomes a lot harder once you pass, or once you start 12th grade, to make up some of those courses from 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. So understanding that from the jump is going to be really, really critical. Having those conversations with your counselors and your coaches, making sure you understand that you're in the right classes. So 16 core, 10 of those 16 before the start of your senior year. That's super important. You have to earn at least a 2.3 GPA in those 16 core, and you have to have a high enough test score. The reason I say high enough test score is because the NCAA, we have what's called a sliding scale. So the higher your GPA, the lower the test score that we will require, and vice versa. So the lower your GPA, the higher the test score we're going to require. So by, again, focusing on your GPA, focusing on doing well in the classes that you're taking, those core courses that you're taking, will give you some breathing room once it comes time to take the test. Also something you want to keep in mind. The final thing we'll need is that proof of graduation at the end of your high school career. That's something that you work with your counselor. They submit that final transcript. It has your proof of graduation on there. You meet these 4 things and you will be certified as a Division I qualifier. That's what everyone's aim should be, so that you can receive your scholarship, practice, and compete in your first year of enrollment. Next, or here's the subject area breakdown for those 16 core courses. Again, I can't stress enough, taking at least 4 core courses all 4 years of high school will put you on track to meet the core course subject area requirement. So making sure that you're taking those 4 all 4 years of high school is really important. You see 4 years of English, so making sure you're taking one of those every year will keep you right on track. And again, I will make sure this presentation is sent out. You'll have more information. You'll be able to look at this a little more in depth if you need to. So here's the gold standard for Division II. Division II has a slightly lower standard. And that's just, you know, how the Division II schools felt was best for their division. You see in Division II, you have to have those 16 core, but there's no core course progression requirement. So you might have a student that could meet Division II qualifier standards, but wouldn't be able to meet Division I standards. Again, that's something that you can think about as you're navigating this process. Maybe Division II is where you end up wanting to go. So 16 core, you have to earn at least a 2.2 GPA. And then again, you have to have that test score that is high enough. And it's the same thing in Division II. It's based on a sliding scale. Here's a subject area breakdown for Division II, a little bit different. But again, you're taking 4 core, all 4 years of high school. You're going to be on the right track towards meeting these gold standards, the Division I qualifier and the Division II qualifier. Division III is a little bit different. Division III student athlete, it's really up to the schools themselves to determine admission, financial aid, practice, and competition. We don't do any certifications for students who are looking to play Division III. We do recommend that Division III student athletes still do sign up for a profile page account, because once you sign up for that profile page account, you will receive information from the NCAA that will help you make a more informed decision about if Division III is right for you, or maybe if you do want to try and go Division I or Division II. So some of the COVID changes, everything we went over, that applies to all classes. That's the base, that's the gold standard for NCAA initial eligibility. You meet those requirements, everything will be good. But there's been a lot that's gone on with COVID-19. There's been so much uncertainty around the availability of testing that the NCAA thought it was necessary to provide some flexibility in this space. So the flexibility that we really provided was not requiring the test score for juniors and seniors. So if you or somebody in your family is currently a junior or a senior in high school, so they'll be graduating in 2021, or they'll be graduating in 2022, and then enrolling in the following fall or spring, that student does not have the test score requirement to meet NCAA initial eligibility standards. They'll still have to meet the core course requirement, so they'll have to get those 16 core. In Division I, they'll have to have 10 before the start of their senior year. They'll still have to have the minimum GPA requirement, and they'll still have to graduate from high school, but no test score requirement for juniors and seniors. Juniors were just added this week. So this is something that is brand new, that has come out for juniors. So just wanted to make sure that that is clear to everybody that is watching. I do want to note though, there might still be colleges or scholarship programs that might require the test score. As I found out pretty recently, Florida was a state that did require the test, that still did require a test score in the last year. So, while the NCAA is not requiring it, making sure that you're understanding the requirements of the colleges that are recruiting you. And if maybe you want to walk on, maybe you're thinking Division III, or maybe you're thinking, I'm going to walk on to a Division I, and you're going to apply for merit-based scholarships or academic scholarships, those scholarship programs might require the test score. So understanding those requirements is also important. My advice would be, especially for the juniors, if you have the opportunity to take the test, go ahead and do it. It won't hurt you. It can only help you in this situation right now. So go ahead and take it. It's not required by the NCAA, but if you take it, it could open the potential for you to get scholarship money outside of an athletic way, if that's going to be something that's necessary. So we do have, I talked about the sliding scale. There's some other lower standards that a student could meet that would still allow them to get certified, but wouldn't allow them to compete in their first year of eligibility or their first year of enrollment at a Division I college. So I have right here a couple QR codes. You can scan these in right now, or you can scan them in when you get that PDF version of the presentation. But this goes a little bit more in depth when it comes to Division I and Division II academic requirements. And finally, just want to end with some resources. Again, I will send over a PDF. I will send over the PDF version of this presentation, and it will have, this resources page will really go over everything I talked about today. It will go a little bit more in depth into that. It will talk about amateurism, recruiting, recruiting timelines, when you should be talking to coaches, what you can do, all of those things. Also, any of the COVID-19 changes, everything you need that you could possibly need is on this resources page right here. I want to draw your attention to two resources that I think are absolutely critical right now. The first is going to be that first one. So the COVID-19 frequently asked questions document that goes over everything that has been put in place due to what's gone on with the pandemic. The major thing is that test score, but there's some other little adjustments that you or your family or even some counselors might need to know, and that's all housed right there. The next resource that I really, really like to promote is going to be the guide for the college-bound student athlete. That's right there under the last orange bullet. It's that first bullet under the last orange bullet. And that one it has everything. I use it right now, in my daily job. If I have a question or need to brush up on something, I use that resource. So that has everything from start to finish that can really help you and your family navigate this process. We'll open it up for questions, but we also have social media. I'd encourage you to follow us on one of these channels. My personal favorite is Twitter. Anything that comes out, anything that's kind of going on with the NCAA initial eligibility or the NCAA Eligibility Center will be posted here. So just having that, following along, you can ask us questions directly via DM. We're really good about answering those as well. So following us on one of these channels, I think will help set you and your families up for success. So with that, we can kind of open it up for questions. How do you want to do this, Yeshiva?
Well, yes, thank you, Barrington, for providing us with all of that information with the NCAA Eligibility Center. We do have one question that's in the chat, and it is just to confirm that any graduating student for the year of 2001 and 2002 does not need to take the test score for NCAA purposes. So if you could readdress that, that would be great. Thank you.
Yep, that is correct. So a student who is going to be graduating this spring, a student who's going to be graduating next spring, in order to meet NCAA initial eligibility requirements, they will not need to have a test score with us. But like I kind of noted, there still might be colleges, that's the NCAA requirement. So we create the umbrella, if you will, and then the colleges kind of fall within that. So we kind of create the bare minimum. And then if they have additional standards, they have that right as well. So while the NCAA is not going to require the test score, making sure you understand the requirements of the colleges that are recruiting you is really important because they might require the test score. Also, if you're somebody who's looking for merit-based scholarships or academic scholarships, those programs that you are applying for to get financial aid might require a test score too. So just something to keep in mind.
This was not asked in the chat, but I do know we often see it, and it may or may not apply this year due to COVID-19. But in the event I am a senior this year or a senior next year, and I am not on that Division I level, meeting the 10-7 requirement. So for some reason, maybe I've experienced a hardship for whatever reason. Is there something that I can do in order to still, I guess, try to qualify on the Division I level with not having met that 10-7 rule?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, if you don't meet the standards, the biggest advice I could give you is to work with a college that is recruiting you. So if you don't meet those standards and you have a college that's recruiting you, working with that college is going to be really important because like you just mentioned, Yeshiva, if there's ever some circumstance, let's say, your dad lost his job and you had to help out or, and had to maybe take time away from school and that, caused an issue with your grades and, all kinds of things happen, especially in the last year or so. The school that is recruiting you can file what's called an initial eligibility waiver. And if there is legitimate reason for why you didn't meet the standards, then you might be able to get some of that eligibility back. You might be able to receive your scholarship. You might be able to practice. You might even earn the right to compete in that first year. So if the school is still recruiting you, it's going to be up to them to file that waiver on your behalf so that you can maybe get some of that eligibility back.
All right, thank you. And this will be our last question before we move on to our next presenter. How important is it to have an NCAA ID when a school is looking at you?
I think it's important because it just makes the process smoother. When a school reaches out to you and they want to recruit you, hey, it's really easy if you already are registered and okay, even if it's for that free profile pic account, if you already have that account on file with us, they'll be able to add you to the list of the students that they're recruiting. And once you're added to that list, it's just going to make the process a lot smoother. It won't, it's not the biggest deal in the world if a college starts recruiting you and you're not registered. You go on there, you register, you get the number, you send it in. But I think having it already shows some initiative and shows some ownership of the process. And then it just makes the process run a little bit smoother for you.
Yeah, I will say currently in compliance, if a school is recruiting you, it is a good thing to go ahead and get your NCAA ID number, because you don't want to slow up the process when it comes to awarding any type of financial aid, if it comes to possibly offering you an official visit. So as Barrington mentioned earlier, the only way that you will be able to get a paid visit or official visit on a college campus is by being registered with the Eligibility Center. So you can create that free profile early on, and as long as you have that profile and your name is registered in that Eligibility Center, then it is a good thing in the recruiting process to move on very fast. So thank you for that, Barrington.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You make a good point, and you seeing it on campus, I think, provides a really good perspective too.
Okay. Well, that is our last question for Barrington, and now we will move on to Danielle Wong, the Manager of Eligibility Services for the National Association of Collegiate Athletics.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Danielle Wong, and I am a manager of eligibility services with our international department at the NAIA. And I'm just excited to share a couple really important tips and take you through the different phases of the registration process, and then answer any questions that you may have for us today. So just a little bit generally about the NAIA. The NAIA, we consider ourselves experts in the business of small college athletics. We intentionally teach character and prepare student athletes to be tomorrow's leaders. So basically our overall program we refer to as champions of character, and those are core values of the NAIA. And those are integrity, respect, responsibility, sportsmanship, and student and servant leadership. So about the NAIA, annually we offer more than $800 million in scholarships, and that is over 77,000 plus student athletes. Currently we have just over 250 members of the NAIA, and between those 250 schools, they span across 21 conferences. And then we have 27 national championship sports, and every couple of years we are always having both what we refer to as emerging and invitational sports that do then have the chance to migrate over to that championship sports status. So a couple of reasons to choose the NAIA. We do have a very high caliber of competition. We offer the chance to continue on from your high school athletic career and play the sport that you love. Less than 2% of high school athletes are actually able to get into that NCAA D1. And while we recognize that there's several pros about each athletic association, both the NCAA and the NAIA, depending on the individual student athlete, we do just like to highlight that the NAIA does allow for many more student athletes to go ahead and carry on their love of sport and play in a collegiate environment. Again, that's with the $800 million in athletic scholarships. And then this is just a little bit of stats around our postseason, so our championships, and that is 17% postseason participation in the NAIA, just essentially allowing more student athletes to get into that championship level of that postseason play. Many of our campuses are quite smaller. Some of them are private universities, some of them are religiously affiliated, some of them are public, but we do really consider ourselves the experts in the business of small colleges, just in the fact that we are really proud of that tight-knit campus communication and lower student ratio to teacher. A lot more personalized and individual attention is offered on many of our campuses. So on our website, you can actually expand your search to find a program that best fits you. On our website, you can find a list of all of our schools, and you can filter by sports and many other details. Eligibility fits. So the ACT SAT minimum is not required, and you can rely on class rank. So we'll touch on that a little bit more in the presentation, and then the COVID exceptions around that. So this is just a quick graphic of where schools are located across the US. Then we actually do have 2 schools in Canada and 1 in the Virgin Islands. And this is just a preview of our current championship sports. Just a couple that I would highlight that are newer over the past couple years would be men's volleyball, men's and women's lacrosse. Women's wrestling was a really exciting one that we introduced recently. And then we have both competitive cheer and competitive dance. So again, this is the Emerging and Invitational, also to include beach volleyball. And then we do have an exciting partnership with the NFL. The NAI is the first collegiate organization to start a women's flag football program. So that is in the process of growing and just really exciting aspect for us. Okay. Recruiting in the NAIA. So NAI recruitment rules encourage that coach and student mentoring and development of personal relationship. So this is just an important keystone that is sometimes different from other athletic associations. So we do, especially for our high school students, have that direct connection with NAI coaches, and we offer several official NAI showcase events around the US. And those are events where essentially you can come out, you can sign up, NAI coaches will be in attendance, National Office and Eligibility Center NAI staff will be in attendance. All your student athletes will get a number, and essentially we'll be able to do friendly competitions, matches, skill drills, and then at the end of that showcase, be able to directly interact with those NAI coaches in attendance. So we often do see, scholarships offered right at that NAI showcase event, which is very exciting. So for our high school student athletes, there's no communication restrictions between the NAI coaches and the athlete. Coaches can connect with student athletes using texting, email, phone, Twitter, Facebook, any other social media. Now, those rules do change when you become a transfer student. You've already attended some, junior college, university, any post-secondary level, but for high school, it really is an open line of communication. Our national letters of intent are not legally binding, so students can change schools after signing for a scholarship if they wish to. A little bit more on recruiting. So there's no calendar restrictions. There is a limit of 2 days of tryouts per NAIA school. High academic achievers are exempt from the scholarship limits. The high grades do make you just more of a recruitable student athlete in general. Scholarship stacking is allowed. So that means that multi-sport athletes can get scholarships in more than one sport and really maximize that aid. And then casting a wide net in athletic recruitment increases recruitment pool and increases your chance to find a program with the right fit. So essentially, we just ask that you look at an array of NAI schools, and then you really can find what is the best fit for you in both your athletic career and especially in your academic career. Okay, so this is the NAIA.org landing page. So you would need to enter your email address here and get signed up. So any and all prospective NAI student athletes do need to come through the Eligibility Center and be determined eligible in order to set foot on the court, on the field for their first competition at their NAI school. So very important, you must receive an eligible determination in order to play on campus. Now, if you're not eligible or you don't have your eligibility determination yet, you can practice and train with the team, but you are not allowed to officially compete until you do have this eligible status with us. So for current high school students, the registration fee is $90, and then it is $135 with high school graduates with a gap. So that just essentially means if you graduated a year ago and are now going to come in the NAI for the fall 2021 term, then that means you have an extended gap more than just that 3 months of summer that you would have if you were graduating senior for this year and then immediately enrolling in your NAI institution. And so again, a lot like Barrington mentioned, we have a very similar waiver program, ACT, SAT fee waiver or free and reduced lunch. The high school counselors work with the student directly and review that waiver request and submit it through our high school portal. So this is a really helpful infographic about each and every step that the student athlete would need to take through the Eligibility Center. So once you register, you create your account, you do your email address, and you pay for your registration fee. And then you're entering all of your profile information. The biggest thing that I would highlight, and this is whether you're an incoming high school grad to the NAI or a transfer student, is make sure that you are including any and all information. So that's all your academic information. If you have any dual credit, if you've attended any post-secondary, any competitive experience in clubs, leagues, or intercollegiate, just you're going to want to make sure that you include every detail so that your full registration process does run smoothly and we get through the process quickly. So then sending documentation. So for all US students, for high school students, all of that documentation is sent via the high school portal. So you work with your high school counselor and they will be able to submit your transcripts and fee waivers. And then any SAT, ACT, of course, does need to come officially from the College Board or the ACT, or the ACT testing center. And you can request both of those scores electronically and using our code 9876, have those scores sent directly to the Eligibility Center. So after all of your documentation is sent and your decision is complete, if you are granted an eligible status, you are ready to compete at your NAI school. So a couple pro tips. Start early. Start that early contact for looking and reaching out to different schools, different athletic programs. An early decision really sets you apart and means you're ready to go. You've already been deemed eligible before graduation, and we'll talk about that in a couple of the upcoming slides and how exactly you can qualify for that early decision. And then just an important note is that coaches cannot add you to their recruitment list, which we refer to as a short list, until you have a registered account. Now, for any students who we consider without a gap, so those are students that for this year, an example would be graduating in May or June of 2021 and immediately enrolling at your NAIA school for fall 2021, you do not have to be on a school's short list. Certainly it doesn't hurt if you are, but you are not required to be. If you have any more of a gap than immediately graduating high school and enrolling at your NAIA school, then you do need to be on at least one NAIA coach's shortlist. With that being said, you can be on 1, you can be on 10 if you're still weighing out your options. We certainly don't limit that, and just because you are on one school shortlist does certainly not mean you're committed to that school. So this is the code I mentioned earlier. So this is for both the ACT and SAT. 9876 is the code that you select on both of their websites, and that will electronically send scores over to the Eligibility Center. Just pay attention and read and respond to any emails that we send you, and continue to check your Play NAI account. And there will be several status updates, and in your student task list, it will tell you exactly what we're waiting on, what we need in order to move forward with the eligibility process. Okay, so sending high school transcripts. So this is for all US students. International students do have a couple different requirements. So transcripts must be official and come directly from the school, and the Eligibility Center requires that high school transcript once you're graduating. So sending transcripts after your high school graduation unless you qualify for an early decision. Again, these early decisions are only for US students. So a couple ways to qualify for that early eligible decision is by getting a 3.0 GPA after your junior year. a 2.5 GPA after the first semester of your senior year, or a 2.0 sent after your high school graduation. And then for fee waivers and the US high school transcripts, all of those will be sent through our electronic high school portal with the help of your high school counselor. Okay, for time's sake, we're just gonna kind of speed through these next couple slides. This is more on the high school portal and submitting the SAT, ACT. So here are our standards for entering freshmen. So this is what we just talked about with those GPAs on that last slide, just kind of a helpful graphic that allow you to see which is the best path towards your eligibility. Here are our test score requirements, but as we will talk about in just a moment here, COVID has created some exceptions. Okay, so important things for this time of COVID, this current academic year, and the continuation into 2021-2022 academic year. So that essentially is that we can waive that ACT, SAT test score, and you can use what we call our COVID-19 GPA exception. And that is if you are an entering freshman without any university and you have a GPA of 2.0 or above. Something really important to mention is while the NCAA uses core courses, the NAI does not. So we use your overall cumulative high school GPA. So if you've already graduated that cumulative GPA, or your cumulative GPA if you're trying to gain that early decision of after your junior year or mid-year senior year. Whatever your final cumulative GPA is based off a 4.0 scale, if you have a 2.0 or above, then you would be eligible as an entering freshman into the NAIA. Again, a lot like Barrington mentioned, while the NAIA and our members do create all of our eligibility center in-house rules, each and every one of our actual NAIA schools, institutions, they all create their own admissions criteria. So just, I would say if you are able to take the ACT and SAT, it certainly wouldn't hurt. And again, many of our schools do still require that for admissions purposes. So just an important reminder that if you are deemed eligible through the NAIA, you still may not meet those admissions criteria. So really important to work with your individual schools. These are just a couple recaps of information that I've already given. No core courses. Another important thing to mention would be that we don't have a sliding scale. So in a non-COVID year, our entering freshmen are required to meet 2 of 3 separate criteria. And that is the GPA of 2.0, the ACT or SAT requirements, or graduate in the top 50% of your class, which we refer to as class ranking. So in a non-COVID time, any 2 of these 3 would suffice. This year and for the full academic year next year, you would simply just need that 2.0 GPA in order to be eligible. Okay, so we work with a really neat program called NCSA, and they will actually predetermine eligibility if you're still a high school student. So a couple links there, and that will help determine your future eligibility. So your next steps, and we'll get this PowerPoint to you so you can have all of these links, but they're also easily available on planai.org. Some contact us information, connect with us on social media at any time. And with that, I thank you so much, and we're going to now segue into questions and answers portion.
Thank you, Danielle. So it doesn't appear that there are any questions regarding the NAIA. There is a question that I did want to address before moving on to our next presentation, though. The question is, are there any camps available in Miami Broward for kids to get practice exposure?
Sure. So unfortunately, this year, COVID has slowed us down on those showcases, but as we are starting to pick up and starting to reevaluate those, I would recommend that you visit NAI.org. So essentially our sister page to playnaia.org. So on nai.org, there's a showcase category, and I would just continually check back on that, because when we do offer showcase events, we often do have a showcase or two in Florida. So I would just keep an eye out on those for upcoming showcase events.
We do have another question, Danielle. Is there a list of sports? Is there a list of sports for the NAIA on the website?
Yes, absolutely. So on nai.org, there is a header along the top. And if you select, I think it's championship sports or sports, you will see that graphic that I shared earlier with those 27 championship sports. And then you'll be able to click into any one of them to find out additional information.
And I'd just like to go back and address regarding the camps on the NCAA level. What I would suggest is that depending on the, as you know, other organizations and teams in sports, COVID, of course, has affected whether or not there will be showcases that will be housed. But on the NCAA level, different colleges or different high schools or different organizations will host their own camps and clinics. There's not necessarily a one-stop shop where someone will, you could go to register their child for a showcase. So it really depends on the sport. It really depends on the time of year, and it really depends on the institution that you're going to. Each institution and each sport will hold or could hold their own separate camps for students to participate in, but just in general, the NCAA would not host a showcase for high school student athletes. I will say that the Orange Bowl annually hosts free youth football clinics during the summer in the South Florida community. They will host a few this summer, and we encourage you to go to the website for more information. It will become available sometime in May if you are interested in that. And please keep in mind that these clinics are for youth ages 5 through the age of 14. And then additionally, they do have high school student athletes. They will have 2 showcases for football, senior football players, as well as in March and April, they do host showcases for basketball and women's sports. So again, I would encourage you to visit the Orange Bowl website to receive more information regarding that. Let's see, I think we do have a few more questions out here. Let's see. I think that question was already answered. There is an NAIA eligibility center that students can go to in order to register. Okay, are there any limitations for a professional sports team to provide events for a team sport? With boys sports, there are guidelines that have to be abided by. So I guess that's the NAIA question. I know NCAA, yes, there are definitely guidelines in legislation that prevents like the involvement of professional teams. So I guess they want to know on the NAIA level, is there any restrictions there?
Yes, so those are also all available on nai.org. Now, I will mention that we have our annual convention coming up in a couple weeks here, and that is when we propose new legislation. And right now on the docket are quite a few proposals around that professionalism aspect. But you can go to nai.org and view what we call our evaluative criteria, which will take you through all of that, including professionalism for both team sports and individual sports, and give you very direct guidance.
Okay, thank you for that. And that is going to conclude our session with the NAIA. Please keep in mind that if we have not been able to answer your question during this question and answer session, that we will definitely be sending out a question and answer sheet at the end of this presentation for you all to present. So our next presenter for you will be Sharon Krantz, and she is the Executive Director. I'm sorry, these are such long titles. She is the executive director for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Thank you, Sharon.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for including me this morning. I'm so excited to be here, and I want to thank the Orange Bowl for including this really important topic this morning, as I think there's so much attention paid to what happens on the field and on the court, but there's so many other things that you need to know off the court and off the field, including academics, if you want to pursue participating in college athletics. So thank you again so much. I am representing Miami-Dade County Public Schools this morning, but although we are the largest district in the state, I know colleagues across the state and across the nation feel as passionate as I do and as professionals in our district do about supporting student athletes so that they are eligible to be able to continue playing playing sports and pursuing a college degree through their sports careers. So again, thank you. What I'm going to be doing this morning is really piggybacking on and reiterating a lot of what you've already heard. I want to break it down for those families on the call to understand specifically what some of these requirements mean in terms of what you're taking in school and what your requirements are. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I think that the slide is really important, is about hitting those books and about how you're going to keep yourself eligible or become eligible. We want to make sure that all students keep the doors open academically so that they are eligible to play at the next level. We as advisors and counselors across the state, we try to keep the door open and we treat every student as a Division I athlete. As Barrington said, that is the gold standard. So if you're eligible for a Division I as a Division I NCAA athlete, then you would be eligible for any of the other eligibility criteria. So this is what our gold standard is, and this is the door that we try to keep open. So even if you don't have that opportunity athletically, academically, you would still be eligible. So let's take a look for a moment at what's required in the state of Florida. In the state of Florida, I wrote there the 14 core courses that are needed in order to get a high school diploma in the state of Florida. I think if you're a student who attends high school in Florida right now, you'll look at those courses and know that you take English 1, 2, 3, 4, you take 4 maths in 1 each year, you take 3 science, and you take your 3 social studies. But as Barrington said, there are 16 core courses for NCAA eligibility required. So I just wanted to point that out, that if you take your regular requirements for eligibility to graduate, you would need to take an additional 2 core courses. In most cases, students are advised to take their 2 additional courses as foreign language, but that isn't always the case. But you do need to know that in planning your curriculum for high school and in working with your counselors, that you are going to have to add an additional core courses to your curriculum. Sometimes you want to take an additional science. So maybe as a senior, you would take a 4th year of science or an additional social studies class. You can include courses like psychology or any other natural or social science or comparative religion or philosophy course, as you see in the last bullet. But I just wanted to be clear that in order to be eligible for the NCAA, at least for it, you would have to be taking 16 core courses. So I just kind of wanted to compare that to what you take to graduate. So as a student athlete, you're held to a higher standard than other students who are graduating. And I'm sure across the country, it is the same, that oftentimes to be a student athlete who's eligible through the NCAA, you do need to meet higher requirements in terms of core courses. So understanding what a core course is, and understanding that your eligibility is based on those core courses, and your GPA, which is the next slide, is based on your GPA in just those core courses. So I want to reiterate that, because I know that many students look at their grade point average. In Miami-Dade County, when we put your grade point average on your report card, on your transcript, that is your overall GPA. In order for you to understand what your GPA is for athletic eligibility, or even for Bright Futures eligibility and other requirements or eligibilities that require only core, you would have to recalculate that, and your counselors can help you do that. The NCAA has a wonderful sheet that shows you how to calculate your GPA just for your core. But in essence, what you're doing is that you're taking just your core courses, the ones that we mentioned, and you're taking your grades and you're averaging them for those courses. So the state of Florida requires a minimum 2.0 to graduate. That is also your minimum eligibility that you need to play. So if you're going to play high school sports in the state of Florida, that's what you need, a 2.0. But your minimum requirement for eligibility in the NCAA, as Barrington stated, is a 2.3 on that sliding scale. When the test is still on this year, we are luckily it's been waived, but in years it is 2.3 is the minimum GPA. So you must put forth maximum effort in your core courses. We find a lot of times students have their good grades in their arts and their musics and their PEs and their average grades in their academics. Not always, but oftentimes we see that. So on the side there, you see I have a little box that tells you in order to get a 2.3, I kind of broke it down in minimum. If we're going to go for a student as straight C's, and we also often know that students are saying, okay, a C is a 2.0. You would have to have at least 5 B's thrown in there at a minimum. I really liked what Danielle said, that the higher your grades, the higher grades make you more recruitable. And I think that's true across all levels. I think if coaches are coming in and they're seeing 2 students of the same athletic ability, and one has a stronger academic record or has a higher GPA, they're probably someone they would more likely want to have on their campus. Because remember, coaches want students who are going to be successful academically in college. Their goal for college athletics is not only to play and to win and to do well on the court or on the field, but also to have their students graduate with a college degree and to use athletics to help you get that degree. So the better you do and academically achieve, the better off you're going to be and the more recruitable you'll be. And then really pay attention to your core courses. That's super important. I wanted to talk about, and this has already been talked about, Barrington did a really good job of talking about that, but I want to make sure that everyone knows that your college admissions are completely different requirements. And as it has been said by both our presenters, but as Barrington alluded to, the state of Florida was the only state in the nation last year, our state university system, that kept the requirement that you must take an SAT or an ACT in order to apply to a state university. So even for those athletes who ended up having their test score waived for NCAA eligibility, they still needed to take the test and have a test score to gain admissions to the state university system. So anyone who was going to UF or FSU or UCF or FIU or any of our other state universities, if you wanted to participate in athletics in those schools, you needed to take the test. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that you must work with the schools or with your school counselor or your college advisor to ensure that you're meeting the requirements for those schools that you're applying to, because those are often different than what's the NCAA or the NAIA are requiring. So if you have a school in mind and a goal in mind, work with folks, do research, use whatever platform your district uses. Our district uses SCORE to look at admissions requirements for that school to make sure that you're meeting those requirements so that you're not missing out on the opportunity to gain admission to the school, even though the college might be recruiting you. Super important to keep that in mind. I want to make sure that everyone knows and understands that at every school, not just in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, but I'm sure at schools across our state and schools across our nation, there is school site support for this. It is real, and I know Barrington, that's part of what he does. He goes to schools across our state and in the Southeast, I believe, to help support schools to make sure that everyone knows how best to support you. In our district, through my office, every school counselor or every school has a lead counselor that understands eligibility requirements, that work with students to make sure that they're eligible. Schools also have an NCAA contact, someone who's going to work with the portal to help upload your transcript, to help get your fee waiver in, and to work with you and your family to make sure that at the end of the day, you have everything you need. Also, it's really important to still work with your school to complete your FAFSA, even though you may be potentially getting a scholarship to go to college. You must complete your FAFSA. If you're a student who is eligible for a Bright Future Scholarship in Florida, you should apply for the Bright Future Scholarship, because sometimes you can get scholarships on top of the money that you're being offered from schools. And you should take every opportunity to apply for other scholarships and work with your college advisor and your counselor to do that. I also want to make sure that it's really important that as you're working with your counselor, you identify yourself early. And you let them know that you are someone who wishes to participate in college athletics, so that they know, as they're advising you, that there are certain courses that may not count as part of your core. Every school has a core eligibility list, and there are some courses that may not count for the NCAA eligibility. And so if you're an athlete and they know you're an athlete, they're going to ensure that you're advised properly. And if you are taking one of those courses, that then you may need another core course, an additional core course somewhere else. So it's really important. And I would advise you to identify yourself and let them know that that's your wish, and those are the doors that you want to have them help you remain open. I also want to talk about test prep. There's a lot of free test prep. Khan Academy is a great test prep for the SAT. I think we want to make sure that if there's once test scores or you need a test score for admissions, that there are ways to get free test prep to help support you, so that you do have the test score that you need. We don't want test scores to ever eliminate or close doors for you as you're seeking eligibility to go to college. And lastly, I want to talk about transcripts. You heard that from both speakers before, that at the end of your high school career, you do have to submit transcripts. The final transcripts in our district in Miami-Dade County, and I'm sure it's similar across the state and across our country, don't come out right of the day of graduation. Usually graduation is posted in our district, usually 10 days after the last day of school. Most schools have a date that they tell you that you should be requesting transcripts. At that point, all your final grades are there, your final GPA is there, because that will be reviewed by eligibility centers. I know in the NAIA, you have to have a certain class rank. Your class rank is on your transcript. So they need to make sure that all of that is there, as well as that your graduation code is posted to show that you actually graduated high school. And then schools will submit the transcript for you through either of the portals. There is a person usually in the school, usually it's a counselor, who is assigned to do that. But make sure you work with them and they know and you're on their list to submit that paperwork, because they will be waiting for that in order to issue you your final eligibility to be able to receive your scholarship. For the NCAA, it's really important that everyone knows that if you went to multiple schools, so let's say you moved within Miami-Dade County, if you go from multiple schools, you're fine. You only need one transcript, because we have a continuous transcript. But if you moved from Broward County to Dade County, or from West Palm to Osceola, or anywhere within the state, or from one state to another, you went to multiple high schools within your high school career, which we see a lot of students over the last few years have moved, you would need to send high school transcripts from all of the schools that you attended if they are from different districts. The same thing in our district for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. If you went to an adult education center like Dorsey to take a course, maybe a course that you were recovering and you took that course, you would then have to send a transcript from DA Dorsey as well as from the high school that you attended, so that the NCAA then reviews all of those courses. They look at a core course as a course that is on the eligibility list of the school where you took the course. And so counselors are trained, especially in our district, to look at that and see where you took the course to ensure that that course is on that school's eligibility list. So it's really important that you know that you're not sending a transcript just from that school, but if you've gone to multiple schools, that you're sending multiple transcripts. So in conclusion, what I really want everyone to make sure that you understand is that there are folks off the field, usually in the guidance office or the college advising office, that are aware of these things and want to help and support you get to the next level. So I encourage families, if you have questions, reach out to your school, ask the academic questions, ask them early. Don't be afraid to do that, so that when that time comes, you have everything that you need to be eligible. If anybody in Miami-Dade County Public Schools ever has an issue with that, they certainly can call our office at the district, because we're super passionate about supporting students and student athletes in their pursuit of athletics at the next level. So with that being said, I really covered mostly anything that I wanted to cover. If anybody has any questions for me, I would be glad to answer them now. We can transfer to our question and answer section.
Thank you, Sharon, for that informative information. I think it was very helpful. I think one of the key takeaways for that is, if you haven't already, please start gathering this information immediately to send either to the NCAA Eligibility Center or the NAIA. The sooner you start, the better. It will definitely help in the process, and for you to be ready to go once the fall starts come August. There are a couple of questions, Sharon. The first question out there is, what are the requirements for international students playing sports at a public school in Miami-Dade County?
Okay, so I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but I think in our district, those requirements are going to be the same as any other international student for the NCAA. So I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about, but the NCAA does have specific requirements for international students that are a little bit different than what we covered today, but they certainly have those opportunities. One of the things that Barrington said that I absolutely agree with is the NCAA has amazing resources that can tell you exactly what you need for international students for their eligibility, what they need to show for eligibility, and who is actually considered an international student. And so I hesitate to answer that question specifically because I don't know the specifics of that situation, but I would encourage you to reach out to your school or to reach out to my office if you're in Miami-Dade and you have specific questions regarding that. Because I think every situation is different, and they need to figure out if they're actually considered an international student. But they would have to provide a transcript information, just like we did for students moving.
All right, thank you. And could you explain more the difference between weighted and unweighted GPAs?
Yes, so the 2.3 that they talked about is their required GPA, but the NCAA does allow for a weighted GPA. They do give a bonus point for honors, AP, dual enrollment courses. I usually don't talk to students about that because we don't want them to get, I guess, lazy with their grades, right? So if you have the unweighted 2.3, you don't have to worry about weighting, but the NCAA does allow for extra points for honors, AP, dual enrollment. They give one extra point. So an A in an honors or an AP class would count as 5. So that certainly does help with the 2.3. It is not the same weighting that we use in our district, because we give 2 points for an AP or a dual enrollment course, and the NCAA gives 1 point for all honors classes. So I hope that answers the question, but I guess it's a weighted. If you do have any weightings in there, it does help with the 2.3.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe that there are any additional questions at this point in time. Let me double check the chat just to make sure. Looks like those have been answered. Okay, well, I would like to say that I know Sharon shared some very good information about there being assistance at Miami or Miami-Dade County schools for those that are students that need any additional or need assistance in finding out information about becoming a student athlete. I will say, and I have experienced in the past, that sometimes, and I'm not saying here at in Miami-Dade or Broward that this is happening, but in some instances, you may not be able to get a hold of someone that could provide you with this information within your school. So you are always welcome to either contact the NCAA as well. They provide excellent information and excellent resources. So please don't be afraid to contact them if you have questions. It's always good, you know, sometimes to get it from the horse's mouth exactly. And then also don't be afraid to maybe contact your local college institutions, their compliance department. They can definitely answer questions for you as well, especially as it relates to initial eligibility. So if you're unable to get assistance at your school, hopefully you are, but in the event that you cannot, please do not hesitate to contact the NCAA or maybe one of your local institutions that can definitely provide you with that information as well. So if there are no further questions, then we are going to move on to our last and final presenter for today. So we are going to talk about another very important topic, which of course is money. And so we're going to hear from Jorge Rios, who will give us a little bit more information regarding financial preparedness. And if you are available or if you're ready, Jorge, it's all yours.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Can you see me? My apologies. Are you able to see me on the screen?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this incredibly important event through the Orange Bowl Leadership Academy, and it's the Collegiate Athletics Eligibility Seminar. I would like to start by pointing out that there's an expression that's attributed to Benjamin Franklin. It is quoted to have been said that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And while this particular seminar is paying focus to potential college students with athletic skills and athletic prowess, I would like to think that what we're discussing today is it's generally applicable to all students and to all families. So you're considering attending college, and I'll make reference again to what Barrington Huntley said and what Ms. Wong said and what Sharon Krantz said. And one of those is academics. If you're able to take care of the academic component of your high school career, that will open up many doors that perhaps will not be open to individuals with or without athletic skills. I'm sorry, that those doors will not be available to other individuals whose academic performance is not as strong as yours. So I encourage, as Barrington Huntley said, reach for academic institutions that may have a more demanding set of requirements to attend, because those academic institutions very often have endowment programs and that are made available to students that they want to have attend their university. And we want to be able to tap into those resources. As I am the proud son of two factory working, hourly earning parents, who, when I applied to college in 1983 and I received my college acceptance letter, the first year's tuition was actually higher than what both of my parents earned or declared in their 1982 income tax returns. So I'm sitting here, I'm participating here to encourage all students who wish to attend college to not limit yourself to applying to a particular university because you don't think you are able to afford it. Don't let that be a limitation for you to reach for universities whose published requirements or whose published tuition costs are over and above what you believe you're able to afford. Please don't let that be an obstacle to you perhaps finding extraordinary resources at universities throughout the country. As I mentioned, I believe this applies to both students and potential college candidates with athletic skills, as well as potential college candidates altogether. So, so you have been accepted. you have received your letter of admission, and then there's the realization of how am I going to pay for this? And there is a series of things that you can take care of then, or ideally, you and your family started taking care of before. It is never too early to start planning for financing a college education. And for most students in this participating in this seminar, scholarships and grants will probably be one of the most important sources of educational resources, of financial resources. So once you have been accepted, reach out to the universities and ask to speak with the financial aid counselor who may be taking care of your region, who may be taking care of your state. It is very difficult for these counselors to answer every single question for every single candidate or every single applicant to the university. But once you have been accepted, then there are separate doors that are open for you to be able to and have more questions answered. The second source the second resource that you might want that you should consider, or that we all should look at, is what do you have your own savings as a student? Perhaps you work through high school, you work through middle school, you work through high school. Do you have your own savings to be able to contribute to your undergraduate financial package? Do you have savings? We must look at that to be able to consider which university is attainable, or which tuition requirements I'm able to achieve. Next, parents. Perhaps you started saving for your child's college education, ideally many years ago, but it is never too late to start saving for your child's education. There are extraordinary resources on the World Wide Web for plans such as 529 plans, parent loans for undergraduate students. There are just numerous websites. There are a couple that I particularly like, because I think that they explain the information very thoroughly, and one of them is savingforcollege.com. That's one of the possibilities that you can look at. In the state of Florida, Florida has myfloridaprepaid.com website, which is also very informative. So arm yourself with those tools to be able to prepare either going forward as your student is graduating high school, because some of those 529 plans can also be used for graduate school. So let's not assume that our child is going to become become an athlete, and that he or she is not going to need further schooling down the line. Parental current income is also a consideration for you to be able to determine how much you're able to contribute. Once you are accepted, speak with your financial aid officer at the university and entertain the idea of whether your schedule allows for a work-study program. In my particular case, my financial aid package included a work-study program and work-related programs. And I was able to, and those students oftentimes get preferential treatment in terms of those work-study programs that sometimes pay a little bit higher rate than for other students who are perhaps not on financial aid. Then there's federal student loans. And again, those programs are currently carry, if we're going to talk about interest rates, currently carry a fairly low rate of interest, and that's another consideration for you to have. Then there's also private student loans that you can take. Those tend to have a little bit higher of an interest rate, but those are also available. And I'm not here to provide you with quote unquote financial advice. I'm just here to, I hope to orient you and highlight some of the alternatives that are available to you and your families. And among those, parents, if you have some home equity built in the home that you own, that's another consideration, because there also may be favorable tax advantages for you to have in order to be able to finance the education for your children. Miss Williams or Miss Edwards, how am I doing on time? I'm looking at my clock, and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of everyone's time.
We are a little over on time, but we
My
are
apologies.
that's okay. We are in you at this point in time. We would be finishing up our question and answers. I do have a couple of questions. If you would like to go into those questions for you, we can do that.
Okay, absolutely, please.
Okay, so one of the questions is for, I guess, definitely with the day and age with incoming freshmen and maybe in emergency situations, what are some of the ways that specifically Bank of America could provide assistance or provide maybe like student banking accounts, the importance of maybe opening up a student banking account for freshmen and for emergency purposes for their students?
Thank you for that. It's incredibly important for students to have a banking account, a checking account, not just for the immediate need, but going forward, it's important to have access to financial resources around the country. When I went to school in the early 80s, there was no interstate banking, so I was not able to open a bank account until I arrived at the university. And that bank account only worked in that state. Now, and I'm not going to say this has to be done with Bank of America. You just look at the very strong and the strong banks that have presence nationwide. As silly as it may sound, you may want to have, you want to have access to an ATM machine. I know young people, and we're going towards, let's call it a cashless society, but having access to an ATM machine, because if your phone breaks down, you're not able to Venmo someone. You want to be able to have access to that. So Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, those are extraordinary institutions that have offices and ATMs throughout the country, and wherever you find yourself, you'd like to be able to have access to your funds. Now, make sure that before you go away to college, you want to have a checking account or a savings account, and be able to have programs where perhaps you're paying with your debit card and you're rounding up your debit, so that the difference between the cost of a purchase rounded up to the next dollar goes immediately into your savings account. There are numerous ways that we can add a little grain of sand to our financial future, and start developing an identity in the financial services world, so that when we graduate, when we seek to purchase our first vehicle, and perhaps we may seek to purchase, start making some of the higher cost items, that we already have an identity in the banking world, and that we're seen as responsible financial adults. And those go a very long way, Ms. Edwards.
Okay, one last question too. If a student has I guess if a student who may not receive like a full scholarship or a full athletic scholarship, and they do have to consider loan options, could you speak on some of the different options that are available that parents and families should be aware of when it comes to loan selections?
Yeah, there are. Let me just. I wanted to. There are loans to students, and at the present time, they're very favorable in terms of the cost and interest rates. On a national average right now, loans to students are probably costing in a neighborhood of 2.75%. Now, those student loans, I just want to point out, 6 months upon graduating from college, that's when you would start paying off those loans. So you have some time to be able to develop your undergraduate career, ideally start your professional career, and then have some time before you start paying those loans. Parent loans for undergraduate students, also known as PLUS loans, they're averaging on a national basis probably around 5.3%. So those are also very what I would consider favorable interest rates for both parents and students. But I'd like to go back to the initial comment that I made. Reach out to the financial aid office once you are accepted, because universities have extraordinary resources to be able to share with talented young men and women who are coming in to their campuses, both with an athletic orientation or without the athletic skills that would qualify him or her for the athletic scholarship. So work with them, educate yourself, inform yourself, ask questions, send emails, and the better informed you are, the more prepared you will be to be able to finance that much desired college education.
All right. Thank you, Jorge, for providing us with that information, especially as it pertains to setting up checking and savings accounts, how early
Yes.
you start investing in these things, and the different opportunities that are available, or options that are available to parents and students when they are looking at financial options for paying for school. I
Yes.
will say that it is never too late to start applying for scholarships. If you have not done so already, please make sure that you apply for your federal financial aid or your FAFSA. That became available back in October. If you haven't done it already, please do so. Please know that you will need your income taxes from last year, parents, in order to provide that, to submit your FAFSA forms. The sooner that you can complete that, the better it is, and the sooner that you will receive information from the institutions that you're interested in and what types of financial aid that you will receive. So whether or not it's an athletics aid, or whether or not it's any other type of institutional aid based on merit or GPAs or bright futures or any other additional scholarships that that institution may offer, the sooner that you can get that information in, the sooner you'll know what you will need, or what money that you will need to pay for out of pocket, if you would need to do that as well. So please make sure that you are completing your FAFSAs. Sharon Grant said it too. Even if you're receiving athletics aid, you still need to submit a FAFSA form, because there could be other monies available to you that you're not aware of, that could be money for you to help you to attend school. And if there are not any other questions, I would say that that would be the conclusion of our presentations for today. So I think that is it, Mr. Rios. And so I will then move into closing out our presentation. So
Thank you.
we would like to thank all of you for joining us today for the Orange Bowl Collegiate Athletics webinar presented by Bank of America. We would like to thank our presenters, Barrington Huntley, Danielle Wong, Sharon Krantz, and Jorge Rios, for sharing so much information. I know that there was a lot of information that we provided all of you today, but please keep in mind that this information will be available via the Orange Bowl website. You will have access to this presentation, as well as access to question and answer sheets that will be provided at a later date and time. Just please keep keep going to the website to see if this information is available. And we would also, but last but not least, want to thank our sponsors for today. For without them, this webinar would not have been we would not have been able to present this information to you without them. So thank you to our sponsors for Bank of America. Thank you so much for your support. There was a lot of great information shared with us today. So hopefully you were able to take notes. Additionally, I think I said that already. Additionally, if you are unable to answer your questions Please feel free to type them in again in the chat, and then we'll make sure that we get that information to you. So thank you again for joining us for the Orange Bowl Collegiate Athletics webinar presented by Bank of America. Have a great day, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you.